In 1880s Montana Territory, mail-order brides arrived expecting husbands, not funerals. Evangeline Porter stepped off the dusty stagecoach to discover her intended husband, Thomas Garrett, was dead, leaving behind 9 orphaned children of different races who now depended on her survival. The hostile townspeople wanted the educated black woman gone. The banker threatened foreclosure in 3 days, and she had never raised a single child. Evangeline faced an impossible choice: abandon these desperate children to save herself or fight a murderous conspiracy to keep this unlikely family together. The courtroom smelled of dust and judgment. Evangeline Porter stood before the carved wooden bench, her dark hands clasped tight against the worn fabric of her traveling dress. 9 children huddled behind her like wind-blown seeds seeking shelter. Judge Morrison's gavel struck wood. The sound cracked through the Montana Territory courthouse like a rifle shot. 43 pairs of white eyes stared from the gallery, their silence pressed against her shoulders heavier than winter snow. "Mrs. Porter?" The judge's voice carried the weight of mountain stone. "You have 1 week to prove you can provide for these children." Evangeline's throat closed. The children shifted behind her. A small hand touched her skirt. "If you fail, they will be separated and placed in state custody." The courtroom erupted. Voices rose like storm wind through pine trees. Evangeline heard fragments. "Unfit. Dangerous. Send her back east." She clutched the crumpled letter in her pocket. Thomas Garrett's final correspondence. The words burned through her fingers. Not the man she thought. Not the life she expected. 3 weeks earlier, the Montana wind had carved dust from her dreams. The stagecoach lurched to a stop outside Copper Falls. Evangeline stepped onto ground that felt like broken promises. Her trunk held 2 dresses, a Bible, and letters from a man who claimed to need a wife for his large family. Thomas Garrett was supposed to meet her. Instead, she found his grave. The headstone read simply, "Thomas Garrett, beloved father." The date showed he died 2 weeks before her arrival. Mrs. Henderson from the boarding house led her to the ranch. The woman's mouth pursed like she'd tasted spoiled milk. "He left them children with no one. Town's been feeding them out of charity." The farmhouse sagged against the prairie sky. Windows stared like hollow eyes. Evangeline pushed open the door. 9 faces turned toward her, ages ranging from barely walking to nearly grown. White, black, Chinese, Mexican, Native, a collection of unwanted souls. The oldest boy stepped forward. His skin bore the mixed heritage that marked him as belonging nowhere. "You the woman Thomas wrote to?" Evangeline nodded, her voice caught in the dry air. "I'm Marcus. These are my brothers and sisters." Not his blood, she realized. His choice. The Chinese girl, maybe 14, watched from the corner. Her dark eyes held suspicion sharp as broken glass. 2 white boys, twins by their matching freckles, sat on the floor whittling sticks into weapons. A native girl tended a Mexican toddler who couldn't be more than 4. The little one's eyes were fever bright. Another black boy, thin as winter branches, scratched numbers in the dirt with a stick. A white teenager stood by the window. His hands moved restlessly like he wanted to run. "Where's your mother?" Evangeline asked. "Ain't got one," Marcus said. "Thomas took us all in, different times, different places." The house smelled of neglect and hungry children. Evangeline set down her trunk. The floorboards creaked like old bones. "How long since he died?" 3 weeks. We've been managing." Managing. She saw the empty pantry, the threadbare clothes, the way they watched her like she might disappear. Mrs. Henderson cleared her throat. "There's the matter of the will. The lawyer's office cramped with mahogany furniture that belonged in a bigger town." Mr. Clemens adjusted his spectacles and read from yellowed paper. "Everything goes to whoever comes to care for the children." Evangeline's heart stopped. Everything? The ranch, the livestock, the debts? His eyes found hers. The responsibility. Debts. The words settled in her stomach like swallowed stones. How much? $500, due in 3 days. The number hit her like prairie hail. She'd never seen that much money in one place. What if I can't pay? Bank takes the property. Children go to state custody. Separated. The word carved through her chest. She thought of Marcus's protective stance, the toddler's fever, the way they'd arranged themselves like a fortress of small bodies. There's more. Clemens handed her a sealed envelope. Thomas left instructions. You're to read this only if you decide to stay. The envelope felt heavy as judgment, her name written in Thomas's careful script. Outside, the children waited in the wagon. 9 pairs of eyes that had learned not to hope too hard. Evangeline climbed onto the driver's seat. The reins felt foreign in her hands. She'd never driven anything larger than her father's buggy. The Chinese girl spoke for the first time. Her English carried precise edges. You leaving? The question hung in the mountain air. Evangeline looked at each face, Marcus trying to be strong. The twins preparing for abandonment, the toddler reaching toward her with complete trust. She'd come west seeking a husband and security. Instead, she'd found 9 children who needed someone to fight for them. The reins tightened in her grip. No, she said, I'm not leaving. The banker arrived the next morning. Mr. Whitmore stepped from his carriage like he owned the ground beneath his feet. His smile never reached his pale eyes. Mrs. Porter, I understand you're Thomas's widow. I'm Evangeline Porter. The foreclosure stands. 3 days. He handed her papers that might as well have been written in Latin. Legal words that meant losing everything. Unless you have $500. She didn't, he knew it. Whitmore's gaze swept the children gathering behind her. His expression hardened when he saw their mixed faces. Of course, there are other arrangements we might discuss. Something in his tone made her skin crawl. She stepped between him and the children. Such as? You're an educated woman, attractive. There are men in town who might take an interest. Proper men. The offer hung like smoke in still air. Marriage to someone else. Safety for herself. Abandonment for the children. And them? State will sort them out. Some might find work, others. He shrugged. Not your concern. Evangeline felt the children's eyes on her back. Felt their small hopes balanced on her next words. Get off my property. Whitmore's smile turned cold. 3 days, Mrs. Porter. After that, this conversation gets less pleasant. His carriage disappeared in a cloud of dust and unspoken threats. Marcus stood beside her. What we gonna do? Evangeline looked at the ranch that might not be theirs by week's end. At the children who'd already lost too much. At the mountains that promised nothing but hard weather and harder choices. She thought of the sealed envelope in her pocket. Thomas's final words waiting to be read. We're going to fight. 2 days left. The number carved itself into Evangeline's bones with each sunrise. She sat at Thomas's kitchen table studying the children like a puzzle missing pieces. Each face held secrets. Each silence carried weight. Marcus moved through morning chores with practiced efficiency. His hands knew every gate latch, every animal's temperament. Not blood son, but chosen protector. The twins, Jake and Jesse, had stopped setting their cruel traps. Now they stacked firewood without being asked. Their matching green eyes watched her constantly, waiting for abandonment. Rebecca knelt by the garden, her brown fingers coaxing medicine from stubborn earth. The native girl's knowledge ran deeper than textbooks. She spoke to plants like old friends. Samuel scratched equations in the dirt while watching the livestock. Numbers flowed from his mind like water from a spring. His stutter disappeared when he worked with figures. David stood apart, 17, and restless. His hands fidgeted with papers he kept hidden. The boy carried guilt like a stone in his chest. Sarah Chen perched on the porch rail, her black hair catching morning light. She'd spoken English yesterday. Today, silence again. Little Maria toddles between them all, her fever finally broken. The Mexican child drew pictures in the dust. Always the same figure. A woman who looked remarkably like Evangeline. The land stretched endless around them. Montana Territory didn't forgive weakness. Neither did men like Whitmore. Evangeline opened Thomas's sealed envelope. Her fingers trembled against yellowed paper. His handwriting spoke across death's divide. If you're reading this, I'm gone and you stayed. The children aren't accidents. Each one I chose. Each one someone tried to throw away. Marcus ran from slavery in Alabama. I found him half dead by the river. Sarah's parents died in San Francisco's Chinatown. Trafficking ring wanted her next. Rebecca's family was murdered for their land. She escaped through winter snow. Samuel's master beat him for being too smart. Learning was forbidden. The twins' father drank himself to death. Their mother followed. David's rich family cast him out for defending a colored boy. Maria's mother died. Crossing the desert, she whispered your name. They're not burdens, they're survivors. I brought you here because you're strong enough to love the unwanted. The ranch hides more than children. Check the root cellar. Trust Marcus. Fight for them. They've already lost everything once. The letter shook in her hands. Thomas hadn't sought a wife. He'd recruited a guardian. Marcus appeared in the doorway. His eyes found the letter, understanding without words. You know? He nodded. Been waiting for you to read it. The root cellar? Come see. The cellar door creaked open on deeper secrets. Hidden beneath potatoes and preserves, a tunnel stretched into darkness. The walls held carved messages, names, dates, prayers. Underground Railroad, Marcus whispered. Thomas helped folks escape, been doing it for years. Evangeline's breath caught. The ranch wasn't just a home. It was a sanctuary. How many? Dozens, maybe hundreds. They'd rest here, then move north to Canada. Sarah's voice came from behind them. My parents used this tunnel. Evangeline turned. The girl's English flowed without accent. You've been pretending. Testing. Sarah's eyes held ancient wisdom. Seeing if you'd give up on difficult children. The deception stung. Then understanding bloomed. Sarah had protected herself the only way she knew how. I don't give up. Good. Because they're coming for me. The words dropped like stones in still water. Who? The men who killed my parents. They know I'm here. Storm clouds gathered on the horizon. The children sensed danger like animals before lightning. They moved closer together, forming their protective circle. David emerged from the house carrying a bundle of papers. His guilt finally cracked open. I've been forging signatures. Evangeline's heart sank. Another deception. Another betrayal. Stealing. Paying bills. His voice broke. Thomas got sick before he died. Couldn't write proper. I kept the ranch running. The papers showed months of careful forgery. Bills paid, contracts signed, a teenage boy holding everything together. Through illegal kindness. You saved us. David's shoulders shook with released burden. Rebecca approached with a clay pot full of dried herbs. She spoke for the first time since Evangeline's arrival. Thomas didn't die in the mine. The words fell like axes through silence. Poison. These herbs were in his body when I prepared him for burial. Evangeline's blood turned to ice water. Murder. Someone wanted him gone, someone who knew about the tunnel, about us. The pieces clicked into place. Whitmore's arrival, his knowledge of their situation, his eagerness to foreclose. We need help, Marcus said. As if summoned by his words, figures appeared on the ridge. Evangeline tensed until she recognized Mrs. Chen from town. Behind her walked a dozen Chinese men and women. Sarah ran to embrace the older woman. Rapid Mandarin flowed between them. My mother's sister, Sarah explained. She's been watching, waiting. Mrs. Chen bowed to Evangeline. Her English carried formal precision. Thomas helped my family. Now we help his. They brought food, medicine, gold coins that clinked like promises in a leather pouch. Enough for the foreclosure? Evangeline asked. Mrs. Chen's smile held secrets. More than enough. But Samuel looked up from his calculations in the dirt. His numbers told a different story. Whitmore won't stop at money. He wants the land. All of it. The boy's mathematical mind had seen the pattern: property seizures, families disappearing, a systematic plan to claim the valley. Thomas figured it out, Rebecca said quietly. That's why they killed him. Night fell like a curtain on their discovered truths. The children gathered in the main room. Evangeline felt their trust settling around her like a warm quilt. Little Maria climbed into her lap. The toddler's small hands traced Evangeline's face. She whispered something in Spanish. What did she say? Evangeline asked Sarah. Mama. The word hit harder than any blow. Evangeline had never been anyone's mother, never imagined choosing such a burden. Now 9 children looked to her for salvation. Outside, the wind carried whispers of approaching danger. Men rode in darkness. Plans moved like shadows. But inside, something stronger took root. Not just survival, not just duty, family. The kind that chose itself. The kind worth dying for. Evangeline held Maria closer and felt her heart crack open like spring earth, ready for whatever grew from the breaking. Tomorrow would bring Whitmore and his threats. Tonight brought something more dangerous. Hope. 1 day left. The countdown ticked like a dying heart. Dawn broke gray over the Montana territory. Storm clouds massed on the horizon like an army preparing for battle. The air tasted of copper and coming rain. Evangeline sat at Thomas's desk, studying ledgers by lamplight. Numbers didn't lie. Even with Mrs. Chen's gold, something felt wrong. Too easy, too clean. Samuel appeared beside her. His thin finger traced columns of figures. The math's off. His voice carried certainty beyond his 10 years. Show me. Whitmore's been buying property below market value, always after the owners die sudden. The pattern emerged like shapes in morning mist. 7 ranches, 7 mysterious deaths, 7 foreclosures. Thomas wasn't the first, Samuel whispered. Evangeline's blood turned to winter water. They weren't fighting for just one, a ranch. They were the next targets in a systematic slaughter. Marcus entered carrying Thomas's hidden journals. The leather covers bore water stains and desperate scrawling. Read the last entry. Thomas's handwriting grew shaky toward the end. Fear leaked through every word. Whitmore offered to buy me out again today. Said it wasn't safe for families like mine in these parts. Mentioned the Hendersons' accident, the fire at Morrison's place, the Chens who just disappeared. I know what he's doing. Taking the valley piece by piece. Killing anyone who won't sell. He knows about the tunnel, about the children, about Evangeline coming. If something happens to me, she's their only hope. The journal trembled in Evangeline's hands. Thomas had seen death approaching, had chosen her anyway. Rebecca knelt by the window, grinding herbs with mechanical precision. Her movements held the rhythm of ancient grief. I know these plants. She held up dried stems that looked innocent as wheatgrass. Wolf's bane, mixed with whiskey, tastes like nothing, stops the heart slow. You're certain? My grandmother taught me, before they killed her for knowing too much. The pieces locked together like bones in a skeleton. Whitmore hadn't just murdered Thomas. He'd done it before. Would do it again. Sarah stood guard by the door, her dark eyes scanning the prairie. Mrs. Chen's people had vanished with the dawn, melting back into Chinatown like smoke. They're coming, she said simply. Dust rose in the distance. 6 riders approaching at deliberate pace. No hurry, no worry. Men confident in their power. David emerged from the root cellar carrying a metal box. Inside, more journals, more evidence, more names of the dead. Thomas hid everything, dates, methods, witnesses. Enough, proof to hang Whitmore twice over. If they lived long enough to present it, the riders stopped at the property line. Whitmore sat his horse like a judge pronouncing sentence. Behind him, Deputy Morrison and 4 men Evangeline didn't recognize. Marcus positioned the children behind the house. The twins gripped their whittled sticks like real weapons. Little Maria clung to Rebecca's skirt. Whitmore dismounted slowly. His boots struck earth with finality. "Mrs. Porter, time's up." Evangeline stepped onto the porch. The gold coins felt heavy in her pocket. "Enough to pay the debt, not enough to stop what came after. I have your money." "Circumstances have changed." His smile cut like winter wind. "New debts have come to light." Papers appeared in his hand. Legal documents thick with official seals. Back taxes, grazing fees, water rights violations. Total comes to $1,500. The number hung in the air like a curse. Impossible. Designed to be impossible. "You're stealing." "I'm following the law." Deputy Morrison shifted uncomfortably. His hand rested on his gun, but his eyes avoided Evangeline's face. "Course, there's still time to reconsider my earlier offer. Marriage to a suitable gentleman. Security for yourself? And the children?" Whitmore's mask slipped. Cold hatred leaked through his civilized facade. Some problems solved themselves. The threat carried the weight of 7 dead families. 7 silenced voices. Samuel stepped from behind the house. His mathematical mind had solved the final equation. The Henderson fire wasn't an accident. His young voice cut through the tension, like a blade. "Someone blocked the doors. Mrs. Chen told me before she left." Whitmore's hand moved toward his coat. Morrison's grip tightened on his weapon. "Boy should mind his tongue." "Like Thomas minded his?" Rebecca appeared beside Samuel. "Before you poisoned him?" The accusations flew like arrows finding their marks. Whitmore's composure cracked completely. "You can't prove anything." David held up the metal box. Journals spilled onto the porch like scattered bones. "Thomas proved everything. Names, dates, methods. Witnesses," Sarah added. "Mrs. Chen saw you at the Henderson place." "The tunnel," Marcus said quietly. "People remember who helped them, who saved them." Whitmore drew his pistol. The barrel gleamed like a snake's eye in the gray light. "Then I guess we're done talking." Thunder rolled across the mountains. The storm broke with sudden fury. Rain struck the earth like bullets. Lightning split the sky. In that brilliant flash, Evangeline saw everything clearly. The children arranged behind her, their small bodies forming a wall of defiance. The gold coins, in her pocket, payment for a debt that would never be enough. The journals scattered at her feet. Thomas's legacy written in ink and blood. Whitmore's gun aimed at her heart. Death dressed in a banker's clothes. And something else. Movement on the ridge. Riders approaching through the storm. Mrs. Chen had not abandoned them. The Underground Railroad still ran both directions. Evangeline felt the children's trust pressing against her back. 9 lives balanced on her next choice. She could surrender, save herself, watch them disappear into Whitmore's machinery of murder. Or she could fight. The rain washed her face clean of everything but certainty. "You want this land?" Her voice carried across the storm like thunder. "Come and take it." Whitmore's finger tightened on the trigger. Lightning flashed again. The approaching riders grew closer. Time balanced on a knife's edge. 9 children, 1 woman. The weight of choosing family over safety. The storm raged around them like the fury of heaven itself. And in that moment, Evangeline Porter stopped running from the life she'd found and started fighting for the family she'd chosen. The gun hung between them like a bridge to hell. Whitmore's finger curved around the trigger. Rain hammered the earth with biblical fury. Lightning carved the sky into jagged pieces. "Last chance, Mrs. Porter." Evangeline felt the children's breath on her back. 9 small hearts beating against the storm. Her hand found the porch rail. Splinters bit her palm. "No." The word fell like a stone into deep water. Whitmore's smile twisted into something inhuman. He raised the pistol. The riders on the ridge burst into view. Mrs. Chen led a dozen Chinese men armed with determination and farm tools. Behind them, 3 black families Evangeline had never seen. The Underground Railroad riding to war. Marcus whistled sharp and low. The sound cut through thunder. More figures emerged from the tunnel. Men and women Thomas had saved. Canada couldn't hold them all. "You're outnumbered," Evangeline said quietly. Whitmore spun toward the approaching riders. His 4 hired guns drew weapons with practiced ease. Deputy Morrison hesitated, his loyalty fracturing like ice in spring. "Stand down," Morrison called to the riders. "This is official business." Mrs. Chen's voice carried across the storm. "Official murder?" She held up papers that fluttered in the wind like white birds. "Signed affidavits, witness statements. Federal marshals are already riding from Helena." The hired guns shifted nervously. Killing one family was different from fighting an army of witnesses. Samuel stepped beside Evangeline. His young voice cut through the chaos. "The math doesn't work, Deputy Morrison." Morrison's weathered face showed confusion. 7 families dead, 7 mysterious accidents. What are the chances? Rebecca joined them, her herb-stained hands steady. "Wolf's bane in the whiskey bottles. Same poison, same killer." David emerged with Thomas's journals, pages scattered in the wind like accusations. Bank records, forged deeds. Whitmore's been stealing the whole valley. The evidence swirled around them, truth made visible in the storm. Deputy Morrison's gun hand wavered. His eyes found Evangeline's face. "Is it true?" "Thomas died protecting children, just like the others." Morrison looked at Whitmore. At the hired killers, at the approaching army of the betrayed. His gun turned toward his employer. "You're under arrest." Whitmore's composure shattered completely. The civilized mask fell away, revealing the monster beneath. "You pathetic fool. This valley belongs to men like me." His pistol swung toward Morrison. The deputy dove sideways. The shot cracked like breaking bones. The battle erupted in heartbeats. Mrs. Chen's riders charged down the slope. The hired guns returned fire. Lead buzzed through rain like angry wasps. Evangeline pushed the children toward the house. Marcus grabbed the twins. Sarah scooped up Maria. Rebecca guided Samuel by the shoulder. David stood frozen on the porch, his teenage bravery finally meeting adult terror. "Move," Evangeline shouted. A bullet splintered the doorframe beside his head. He stumbled inside. The fight raged in the yard. Whitmore reloaded with shaking hands. Morrison crawled behind the water trough, blood seeping from his shoulder. One hired gun fell to Mrs. Chen's rifle. Another fled toward the ridge. The odds shifted like weather, but Whitmore had one card left to play. He grabbed little Maria from Sarah's arms. The toddler's scream cut through gunfire like a blade through flesh. Everyone stops or the child dies. The courtyard fell silent except for rain and thunder. Maria sobbed against Whitmore's chest. Her small hands reached toward Evangeline. "Drop your weapons." Mrs. Chen's rifle lowered slowly. The other fighters followed her lead. Whitmore backed toward his horse, using Maria as a shield, his pistol pressed against her temple. "This valley is mine. These children don't belong." Evangeline stepped forward. Each footstep felt like walking on broken glass. "She's just a baby. She's proof that this country's been poisoned, mixed breeds, foreign blood." His words carried the hatred of generations, the fear that drove men to murder children. "Let her go. Take me instead. You're all going to die anyway." Maria's cries tore through Evangeline's heart. The child who'd called her mama, who'd drawn her picture in the dust. Whitmore reached his horse, prepared to mount with his tiny hostage. Sarah moved like smoke. Her small body uncoiled from behind the water barrel. Years of hiding from killers had taught her to move in silence. The knife appeared in her hand. A kitchen blade sharp, enough to slice vegetables or cut monsters. Steel found flesh between Whitmore's ribs, not deep enough to kill, deep enough to make him scream. He dropped Maria, spun toward Sarah with murderous rage. Mrs. Chen's rifle spoke once. Whitmore crumpled, into the mud like a broken scarecrow. Maria ran to Evangeline on unsteady legs, small arms wrapped around her waist with desperate strength. The storm began to ease. Rain gentled from fury to blessing. The valley seemed to exhale. Deputy Morrison struggled to his feet, clutching his wounded shoulder. His face showed the weight of realized betrayal. "I'm sorry. Should have seen it sooner." "You saw it when it mattered," Evangeline replied. The courthouse smelled of justice instead of judgment. Judge Morrison banged his gavel with ceremony instead of condemnation. The gallery held friendly faces now. Mrs. Chen sat in the front row. The Underground Railroad families filled the back. Federal Marshal Webb read the charges: murder, fraud, conspiracy. Enough crimes to hang a dozen men. "In the matter of the Garrett estate," Judge Morrison announced, "custody is hereby granted to Mrs. Evangeline Porter." The children pressed against her like flowers seeking sunlight. Maria climbed into her lap. Marcus stood at her shoulder. Sarah held David's hand. They were officially family now, paper and law confirming what hearts already knew. 6 months later, spring returned to the valley. Evangeline sat on the porch watching her children play in the yard. Marcus taught Samuel to ride. The twins built a fort with David's help. Rebecca showed Sarah how to coax medicine from wild herbs. Maria toddles between them all, chattering in a mixture of Spanish and English, calling everyone by name, belonging completely. The letter from Philadelphia lay unopened on the table, her former life reaching across distance and time. Wealth, respectability, everything she'd thought she wanted. Marcus noticed her stillness. "What's it say? Does it matter?" She picked up the letter, felt its weight against her palm. The promise of a different future. The children's laughter rose, like music from the yard. Sarah braided Rebecca's hair. David helped the twins with their reading. Samuel solved equations in the dirt while Maria drew pictures of their family. 9 faces that had learned to hope again. 9 hearts that beat in rhythm with hers. Evangeline tore the letter in half, then quarters, then pieces small enough for the wind to carry away. She'd come west looking for a husband and found something far more dangerous. A family worth dying for. And that is all to the story, for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you, it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.